Sorry, Lord, I can't go with you. Those wheels you have seem a little bit anti-Semitic. Hey there, guys. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the world of Tuesday. We live in a illusion called Tuesday. And, hey, it's kind of beautiful if you think about it. Glad you guys are here. Thanks for being here. Lots to go over today. Today we're going to go over something no one ever talks about. The actual definition, the actual mechanics involved in taking yourself from falsehood into truth. The actual art of defining what is true, what is logos, what is real, and what is not. Checking out the chat here. Hello, D Live. Good morning, all. Good to see you, Laura Bear. Good morning, Peanut Bear, Macedonian, Crow Bear. Hello, all. Thanks for the lemons, guys. Appreciate that. Look at that ice cream coming in so early in the morning. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Lots of chat in the chat. I see that. I'm going to let you guys work that out. I say good. Let all opinions roll. One of you complained that you were silenced in DLive, and I just want to remind you that if you were silenced in DLive, there's really only like one main moderator, so you probably kind of said something stupid. So just maybe look at that. We'll always side with my moderator, always, because that's how tribe works, right? You trust others to do right, and they always do. Or if they don't, you correct, and then you learn to trust yourself better next time. Good morning, YouTube. Good to see you guys there. Everybody's seeming to be flowing in. Good morning, Joshua. Hello from Indiana. Cheers from Milwaukee. Logos Rising. You're right. Christ is the standard. That's a great way to look at it. The Holy Cross is a living antenna, as we talk about here a lot. So well said. Hello from the Netherlands. All right, guys. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. Hey, Kristen, Hannah, good to see you. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. I spent my life focused on what is true. I spent my life focused on what is moral, what is ethics, and what is philosophy. When I tell you these things, it doesn't mean that I know. It doesn't mean that I hold things that you don't, nor does the credential that I have as my degree mean that I am an expert in any way, shape, or form on philosophy or ethics or the understanding of truth itself. But what I do have that many of you don't have is the calories burned in actually looking at that question. It doesn't mean I'm right. It simply means I put in a lot of calories in it. And that's really all. And so when we look at all the disagreements that we're having these days, when we look at how we interact with others, we find that there's a basic assumption that both sides make that they know what truth is and that they are the only ones that have it. And as we've been learning with Aperture, that's a pretty gross way of even trying to look at the world. But this is the pool that we emerged from. This is the tunnel that we came out of. And it's been a long quest up through that Plato's cave, up through our retinas, right? And back into our crystal ship and looking at reality in its true form. Most of us don't want to do that. Most of us want to find excuses to stay away. And this is part of our awakening. We are not chained in Plato's cave. We are simply subdued there. There's a very big difference. The chains of seduction are pretty hard to break. You guys know that. Socrates, a system of morality which is based on relative emotional values is a mere illusion, a thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing sound in it and nothing true. Socrates is telling you that your emotions should have nothing at all to do with your divination of truth. This was a belief that was made popular with materialism. As materialism birthed, people started to slip outside of two chambers of their triangle inside their body and started to evacuate those two chambers to rely solely on reason. Reason is a function of the neocortex. It's not a function of the body. Reason is your ability to discern and simulate. I am a left-hander, which means that my right brain The right side of my brain is the dominant brain, okay? It is the Joachim. It is the pillar of severity. There is righteousness. It wears, if you could picture me wearing a codpiece, it would be on that side of my brain. The codpiece of righteousness is what so many will go out and conquer the world in. They will think because they have this codpiece on that they may therefore destroy evil. And by destroying evil, they therefore become good. So it's a seesaw, right? You have good and evil as a seesaw. And most people live in that level and feel like they have a good handle on morality and ethics. And there's nothing wrong with even trying to strive at that. Guys, I don't think that anyone's wrong or right. I think everyone's on the path. And that path is either going to get you farther or it's not. And even if you don't get farther, what I see in God, what I see in Dojo Earth, what I see as a gift of Baal, is that where you are on the journey is not a reflection of who you are as a person. Where you are in the journey is crucial because that's where you are in the journey. Many of us are yelling at people for not agreeing with them. They're saying, well, I pray for him, right? You get that. I pray for James that he'll stop being such an evil person, is what I've seen in some of the comments. And we've been over this, that I'll pray for you is the same as them basically saying, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. You're broken. You're broken. You're broken. And I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. It comes out as what looks like an elixir. It looks like morality. But if you look underneath it, it's a subterranean form of self-soothing. It's what we use to try and make ourselves feel better from something that scared us. All right? To truly pray for someone would be to pray for them. To not tell them, but to pray for them. Maybe afterwards to come up and say, last night, man, I prayed for you. At first I thought you were broken. At first I thought you were wrong. But when I prayed, I realized, wait a minute, all of us are on a path. All of us are striving as hard as we can to find that definition, the one that fits us the best, the one that defines us the best. And that's really why we're here. So anyone who wants to come in and tell you, well, I pray for James, is simply showing you that they have a subterranean economy that makes them want to feel better. They're looking to feel better by saying that. It's really the antithesis of prayer. If you think about what true prayer is looking within, isn't it? It's a meditation with the self. It's a meditation with the self, which causes that antenna to connect to God. But we're not allowed to say that because we've kicked God out of our bodies. We did that a long time ago. And we showed that kicking God out of our bodies in our philosophy. And that began really with Socrates. He really started this whole idea that profanity is the man and the logos is the goodness. And so you now have that same that compassionary retardation that I've talked about that so many have. If someone is claiming they're evil, what they truly are is they're compassionately retarded. They're looking at a dandelion and they're claiming, you're a weed, it's a weed, it's a weed. There's truth in that. You could take it to anyone else in the Zeitgeist and they would say, that's a weed too. And so you find that good and evil is not something found inside, nor is it found outside in God. You've now decided that the Zeitgeist is in charge of good and evil. That's about the most fucked up thing you could do. It's so fucked up that Jim Williams just gave me a super chat for it. This is part of why we end up getting lost. We lose the tiny quiet voice in our mind to the large booming, pounding chest of the Zeitgeist, right? That's evil! What you're saying is evil! That becomes the loudness that overrides the nature itself as it's trying to talk to us. And because that's so popular, you find that it's like an American Idol philosophy, isn't it? You end up with a philosophy that's based on how many are going to agree, how many of them are going to be healthy or satisfied as a result of that. It's a natural process for us to find these holes, fall in them, dwell in them for years, and either come out or die, right? Or finish our life in there. So the rise from Socrates to Plato is really a rise into the idea that man himself is ignorant. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing, said Socrates. And that's why when Socrates died, he took the poison. The state told him, here's your vaccine, Socrates. Here's your vaccine. And because he was so evacuated, because he had no self, because he insisted that morality, law, love, logos all came from outside of him, he was never able to achieve sovereignty. He turned himself into a slave of the state because he wanted to lick the virtue. All right? He wanted that virtue more than he wanted his own life. He wanted others to see him as a good, kind man. So he would do things that the Zeitgeist told him to in order to feel that he was moral and just. Sadly, Socrates was not alone. There were many that moved into this system. Now, here's Plato saying excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. We do not act rightly because we are excellent. In fact, we achieve excellence by acting rightly. And this truly is the very, very first schism into this idea that we're going to talk about, where the true logos comes from, where the true essence of truth actually generates itself. And it's inside the body. Now, a lot of you guys can freak out right now if you want, because you're still rejecting the body, you're afraid of the body. And that's natural. It's a necessary part of growth. You will fear fire. You will fear the body. You will fear new ideas. You will fear thought. You will fear thinking. You will fear yoga. You will fear camping. You will fear camping. You will find things that you fear because you reject yourself. You do not have that confidence in yourself yet, which means you do not have the confidence in everything around you. All right? This is truly about an electrical field. But we've lost that notion because we think that instead it's a external logos that lives outside of ourselves. And that's really what we need to kind of look at and say, is that even true? Is that even true? What you're looking at here is the rhetorical triangle. It's the overview of the three rhetorical appeals. Now, the first appeal is ethos. Ethos is a Greek term for ethics, but it's been made to represent credibility of the person making a communication that speaks. What that means is ethos is reputation. Ethos is your personal electrical opinion. It's your charisma. If you've listened to someone for a while and you feel like that they always drop truth, you're going to tend to side with them purely by ethos, purely by using your ethos to fall into their triangle, right? To fall into their ideal. The next rhetorical triangle is pathos. Pathos is the Greek term for emotion, but it's been made to represent how an audience feels or experiences a message, all right? Pathos is the appeal to your keel, your emotions, your limbic system is really what it is. It's finding a way to inject words into someone to get them to emotionally change their position. If you read any of my books, you'll see that almost all of my work is pathos induced, followed by a logos generated. I don't control the ethos because the reputation is none of my business, okay? So these approaches, there's no right way to do this. There's no wrong way to do this. It's simply the best we can. Someone who would make fun of somebody, right? Someone who would say, well, anyone who thinks that is a sodomite, right? Or anyone who thinks that is evil, or anyone who thinks that is a pedophile, or whatever. Those people are strictly just staying in pathos. They're under the impression that if they can make it emotionally expensive or cheap for you to believe or disagree with the opinion they're wanting to push, that therefore they have logos. This is something that we all do, including me. This is how we win arguments. This is how we tell people we don't need a mask. This is how we explain our sovereignty to someone who really, really wants to stay in slavery. All of these are systems that we use, but none of these are truth. None of these are truth. And you might even think, well, what about logos, James? And logos is the Greek term for logic, but it's been made to represent the facts, research, and other message elements that provide proof or evidence to a claim. Logos itself is actually pure rationality. It is the analytical part of breaking something down into its core pieces and parts. The biggest downfall to that form of logos as a form of truth is that it requires that the world be turned into a materialistic atmosphere. It requires the idea that if all mankind was to be disappeared from this earth, one, the earth would still exist, and B, it would still have truth or logos in it. And this is truly what causes the schism to fall. This is truly the birth of germ theory. The idea of germ theory is we do not have the logos inside it. It must be injected in us from external sources. And because we need that external source, because we believe in the vaccine, we are prone to listening to sycophants. We are prone to listening to this cult mentality, the Zeitgeist mentality, which is a majority rule, which means that which is true is that which feels good. And you'll truly find that most people, that's what their definition of truth is. It's that which is feeling good to me, all right? In fact, some of you guys might even watch Vox, and you know that Vox Day defines logos as the good, the beautiful, and the true. So let's pretend that that's how we find morality. Let's base our entire life on that definition of logos as being the one true truth and everything else is false. And let's also say we cannot trust ourselves, right? Because we are not the gods of our own body. That's Luciferian, that's evil. That instead we have a God that's outside of us who's trying to tell us what truth is. This is a very, very easy couch that's been laid out for you. You can lay here and go, yeah, logos, good, beautiful, true. But as you really start to break down those words, you start to understand, holy shit, all of these require me to be inside of my body and discern what each of these are. So even though we're going to show you that people believe that the logos is outside of themselves, you'll see with these three words that actually, no, it's not. Because without mankind, there is no such thing as true. True is a decision. True is something that we've decided on something. Does it hold true? You can't even say that every single thing that you find is going to be true or false. Because as we start to understand aperture, as we start to understand position, we realize that true and false are actually vistas. They're actually different ways of looking at a situation. We actually go in with truth in order to make ourselves feel better so we can carry something out. So we take our argument and we look and we define where is truth in this. If I can report and find enough true statements and I write them down in a nice analytical list, I now have truth. And so what you end up doing is you end up evacuating your pathos and your ethos because now you're pure logos. But it's a worse kind of logos because it's external logos. It's externally logos because you've told yourself that you were nothing. You've told yourself that you are not the arbiter of truth. You've told yourself that this comes from outside yourself. Now, when you ask someone who believes in this logos, they will never answer, never, not once, will they answer, how does that logos get into the body? How is that delivered? If truth is coming from outside of ourselves, how are we as instruments supposed to discern that truth? If we do not have the power to decide what's morality, if we are not in charge of producing morality like a pollen in the world, how is it that we are even able to get truth? It's very similar to saying that racism is something that you will never ever be able to discern, therefore you will always be racist. Because you've set your definition from outside yourself. You've told yourself, they're the ones who decide what racism is, therefore I'm the one that can either be or not be racist by how much these people like me or dislike me. And that, my friends, is a difference between a truth movement and a comfort movement. And if there was ever a lesson that I've repeated over and over and over and over and over again since I started writing, it's this. It's noticing what a big, big difference there is between the truth movement and the comfort movement. And logos is one of those things. Logos is a message. Logos is telling you, it's representing facts, research, and other elements that provide proof or evidence to a claim. How do you provide proof or evidence when there's dissonance all around you? How is the fact you even think you know proved without Syntheticism? I've spoken a lot to you guys about Syntheticism. It's the idea that the only truth that you could possibly know is one that's derived through your senses. In fact, you owe an obligation to the world to tell it as politely as you need to, hi, I'm sorry, I'm not able to believe that because you see, I haven't synthetically experienced that yet. We don't like saying that. We've been taught that in order to be polite, we have to keep telling each other that synthetics is rude. That to require that we experience something before we believe it is a form of distrust, that we are distrusting and rejecting humanity by doing this. And truly what we're doing is we're rejecting the zeitgeist. Truly what we're doing is we're looking at the nation and we're saying, I'm sorry, you guys are a bunch of insane, compassionately retarded people on the whole. I cannot accept what all of us say in a group setting as truth. All I can do is experience what I can experience. Can you help me, science, experience this through my senses? If so, I will find that truth. And you'll find that within the scientific community, there is an inkling of Zeitgeism. It used to be there. I think in 1910 it was completely destroyed. It was completely burned away. We replaced Syntheticism with comfort. We replaced Syntheticism with fear. And that's really what we've been running rampant with ever since. America is a wild west for philosophy. It's a wild west for ideas. Thank God. I would rather have an atmosphere where we have wrong ideas running rampant, because I know that as long as they're allowed to run rampant, truth will slowly reveal itself. Because truth is not necessarily something that is outside the body, that's a priori, before man. Truth is something produced by man. That's why truth is able to change from generation to generation to generation to generation. Right now, I will tell you that circumcision is wrong. To take a baby and to do that to him without any of his consent is obviously wrong. But as we go back into the history of circumcision, you will find that people thought it was wrong to not circumcise your baby. They considered it cruel and inhumane to not do that. Additionally, if you chase it back even further, you find out that circumcision was actually done as a bar mitzvah. People were coming into their adulthood and circumcising themselves. This changes the morality a little bit, doesn't it? It changes the focus or the fulcrum of, is that moral or is that not moral? I'm not saying it's right, because mutilation is wrong. However, that mutilation is something that you learn. By mutilating yourself, you start to understand the sanctity of life. We call that the gift of Baal. We understand that when we do things wrong, it's alchemy to find what's right. And truly, if you were to look at that, get ready to freak out, that's the Hegelian dialectic. Hegel defined truth as find two pillars. Find two pillars that you think are the extremes between what you think is true, and hold true to those pillars long enough to see their folly, right? Find the severity of your truth, and then find the mercy of your truth. This is very much a lesson of compassion, something most of us don't have. We're still caught up on that idea that to have compassion for something is to consent to what it does. As if every single prison psychologist that ever went to work was secretly working for a Luciferian evil cult, because they were going into a prison and showing compassion to the people inside the prison. In fact, you could argue that the prison ministry itself would be the most evil system in the world if we fell into this trap, this idea that anyone who has compassion is an evil entity in the world because they are having compassion for evil itself. And it's just simply not true, unless you're in that definition where you don't truly understand these things yet. And that's okay. This is why so many people are so angry. This is why we're having to patrol the chats like we are. And it's why we keep going. Guys, this is not, this thing that's happening, this is not new. This is the exact same thing that happens every 3 or 4 months. Someone tells you how fucking awesome I am. They follow me every day. They adopt my language. They adopt my philosophy. They adopt my thoughts. And then one day they get uncomfortable. And it freaks them out so much, they start to backtrack and they pull it all away. And that's fine, because I've learned that I'm a tribe of one. I've learned a long time ago, James, do not adopt a name that's not your own. Do not adopt a motif. Do not adopt a tribe. Maintain yourself. The best thing you could bring to a tribe, James, is what I would tell myself, is yourself. Bring your energy. Bring your discernment. Bring your giant alchemical chemistry set, right? And set up your Bunsen burner and all your little tubes and percolate truth. Distill truth. And I will do that in front of you because I want you to catch me in a mistake. I want you to look at that and say, I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's right, James. That's why I bring it here. That's why I lay it all out. That's why I would never dare even try and tell you something about logos without first defining it as best as we can, without telling you exactly what people think they think about something. Because one thing I learned in majoring in philosophy is there's a big difference between what people think and what people think they think. And that's a hard one for literally everybody, unless they've actually put the calories in and said, you know, my neocortex is not in charge of this vessel. And that's a scary thought. I think that's what terrifies us the most. The moment you realize that your neocortex is not the captain. It's not. There is a much deeper keel in you. Your captain, to be honest, is more of a committee. It's a committee of two. or more like three, really. Your triune brain, right? Your center core, that reptilian that you're supposed to hate, the one that everybody squirts over like, oh, it's a reptilian. Well, that's the core of you. People reject the core of themselves. They reject it so much they cast their inner reptile into outer space. They send it into the zeta reticuli and say, I feel soothed now because I've taken that inner reptile, the one I've ignored, the one I've cursed, the one I've said has no say-so at all in trying to define or use their intuition for God, and I've cast them out so far that they are now in a different orbit, billions of light years away. And we feel better by doing that, because now we think we know what truth is. And if you look at what Catholicism is, that's what they did with Logos. They said, hey guys, you don't have to worry anymore. We've got it figured out. All you got to do, cut your dick, come eat some bread, and come drink the wine. And whenever you do, we'd like for you to remember this cannibalistic ceremony. Let's do all this, and then you don't have to worry about Logos anymore. And so how does that work? First, you have to tell them, so first of all, you're fucked. You're born in sin. Second of all, you have a life debt to someone. Someone had to be murdered for you. We had to murder this innocent person, probably the greatest guy around, because of how bad you are. It was so bad that we had to go back in time and murder someone. And when you start to believe that idea, you fall into this idea that rationality is truth. And it sounds so appealing. It sounds so sexy. It sounds so right on to say rationality is truth. But what is psychopathy, my friends? What is relativism? What is sociopathy? You guys honestly think that evil people out there get up in the morning and say, I'm going to plot evil today. Today, I want to plot evil. And I'm telling you that doesn't happen. I'm telling you, I've slept with evil, I've been with evil, I've sat next to evil, I've dined with evil, I've given evil all my money and lost. And I know exactly what evil is. Evil is evacuation. And that person inside that evacuated mind wants to sleep as comfortably as you do at night. And in order to sleep at night, they are always going to feel like they were following and pursuing Logos, good. And they will reason, and they will refine, and they will justify whatever they can to follow that. That's called scaffolding. That's what makes us so lazy. That's why it's important that you think of yourself as a destroyed, evil, broken sinner, capable of destroying this entire dojo earth by the folly of thinking for yourself and by the folly of trusting your own compass. That's the parable of Zionism, isn't it? You are broken. Your compass is broken. You cannot trust yourself. You have to trust Logos. And the only way to get Logos is to use logic. What is a logic circuit? When you open your computer, is that Logos? Because if I had a computer right here to open, I would show you the circuitry. I could point to you at all the parts. I could show you the capacitors. I could show you the transistors. I could show you the hard drive. I could show you the RAM. I could show you the math chip. I could show you the LCU, the front side cache, the back side cache. I could show you all the peripheries. And it would not be Logos. It would be true. There's nothing real about what's happening there. There's nothing morally real, I should say. There's no essence. What that is pure procedure. A computer is a procedure. A computer cares not who's using it. A computer cares not what's to be given. A computer cares not what the end result is. It's following procedure. The capacity has a procedure. I will fill with charge until resistor triggers, and then I will dispense charge. A transistor has a receiver. When I receive inside prong 1, I will send through prong 2. RAM has a procedure. I will remember this. It matters not if it's true. It matters not if it's real. It matters not if it's porno or the picture of the universe itself in its true form. It doesn't matter. It's data, not truth. And you can reason data. I can prove you can reason data. Global warming has been reasoning data for decades. They've been using Logos, what they think as Logos, to prove to you that the earth is boiling because we are bad. I can use logos to prove to you that you have a carbon footprint. I can use logos to prove to you that recycling is necessary because of how dirty you are. I can prove to you we need logos to hunt down babies in incubators, weapons of mass destruction, and Pizzagate pedophilia underneath a restaurant. Is that logos or is that comfort? And before you answer that, also ask yourself, do those people think that they are brandishing logos or truth? Or do they think they're brandishing comfort and outrage? Exactly, Hugh. Garbage in, garbage out. What arguments do you bring to the table, right? I am the root and the son of David. I am the morning star, said Jesus. What does that do to your understanding? What does that do to your comfort? All of these comforts and all of these discomforts are a reflection of your field, a reflection of how sound and how true your field is. I try and maintain my field as best I can. I try and have a confidence to me as much as I can, and in order to have that confidence, I'm constantly having to reevaluate my position. I'm constantly stopping myself at a red light going, well, wait a minute. If truth is logos, what is logos? Because if logos is beauty, what if your sense of beauty is warped? How will you define logos? If logos is truth, what if your sense of truth is warped? How will you find logos? Probably the most laziest definition is to call, well, logos is good. Because I would say we don't even know what good is. I think the best definition we could come up with to say what is to say good is what God wants. Good is what God wants. But if we're going to say that good is what God wants, we are looking at a world full of Lord technology. We're looking at a world full of gifts of Baal. We're looking at a world full of pedophilia, psychopathy, sociopathy. Now we can't say, well, this is good and that's is bad, because we're saying if God is the definition of what is good, God made all this, so all of this is good. Now you don't have a definition anymore. Now you're just arguing with yourself. Guys, you have to work harder at this. What this idea of believing a church, believing a word, believing a philosophy, believing a person gives you is comfort. It gives you comfort from the storm. You find that you can now sit back and take a nap because someone else is driving. And you've been told it's good. That you will be good if you let someone else drive. And despite how many times they've driven you off the road, or you've run over someone innocent, or you've ended up lost, people will keep telling you, let someone else drive, until you finally stop listening to those people. Until you finally say, this sounds like bullshit. This sounds like a retarded way of looking at the life. Why do I have all these instruments inside me? Why do I have adrenals? Why do I have an endocrine system? Why do I store pain and salt inside my body? Why are my hips the receptors for trauma? Why is my entire body an instrument that I can recall or subvert real things that happened to me in the past? You start to understand what God gave you. He gave you an instrument. He turned you into a harp, and you've dampened all the strings to insist. I have no song. I have no tone. I am unworthy of being played. For me to serve God is to stuff cotton between all these strings and to make sure that I am not the generator of my note. And if God wants to play me, he will come and he will remove all this cotton and he will pluck my strings when he sees fit. And you can live your life that way. We start off that way. A snake is the creature that keeps its belly on the ground at all times. Each of us begin our life on our belly. We begin to crawl, and we begin to stand, and we try and walk, and we try and run. Then we learn a bicycle. Then we learn a car. Some of us learn a plane, some of us learn a helicopter, some of us learn a boat, a canoe. We learn how to propel ourselves through this world. We learn how to motor ourselves past where we used to be. It's always a journey of where we used to be. And because of that, truth is always going to be something that's profoundly generated inside of you. You get to compete in the market for what is true and what is moral. You are expected to bring your wares every Sunday to this farmer's market and place them in your basket and offer them for sale. This is my truth. I grew all of this truth here. It does not look like those. It does not look like this. It looks like this. And we call that art evil. We call that art Luciferian. We call that art trying to rise above God by trying to listen, by trying to use the very tools we've been given right now. That is so hard to do. None of us want to do it. We'd rather just have a simple word, like logos. We'd rather have this idea that we can just use, that we can just point at and say, no, I'm moral because I follow logos. And boom, you're done. There's no more work. You are wasting 0 calories now. You've got nothing else to do. You've got it. It's all taken care of. Logos is the formal cause of the cosmos and all things, responsible for their nature and configuration. Let's look at the deeper word of logos, what it truly means. Because logos is more of a manifestation of God. And you can't manifest God through reason. You can't manifest God through your neocortex. You can't do it through your reptilian, the triune brain, the real trinity, right? The reptile, the mammal, and the human. What emerges in the mammal that the reptile doesn't have? Empathy, a telepathic connection with others like him. Dolphins have telepathy or empathy. They understand the world by having a social relationship to it. The social relationship to it defines what is good or bad for them. Their logos is literally defined by their zeitgeist. It's a herd mentality. Duck rape is real. That's a moral decision that all ducks have made. They've said, what we all do and agree on, that which we do not bitch about, is that which is good. That's what duck rape is real means. And we live in that world almost predominantly. It goes back to that comfort movement. We live in the idea of what's comfortable. What's comfortable? I'm not in charge. What's comfortable? I'm not driving. What's comfortable? I'm just going to say the word logos. I'm just going to say the word good. I'm just going to say the word God. And everything's now taken care of. But none of the calories have been burned. None of the lessons have been learned. None of the deadly mistakes have been made. Because you don't get to call it a mistake, because you were following orders. That's all. So if something bad happens to you, it's just simply God trying to get you to learn how to follow orders. It's just the more pain, more gain, right? And there's nothing wrong with that philosophy. You will live the rest of your life like that. That's duck rape. That's a world of moral duck rape. And that's what we have. We are surrounded by ducks who want to fuck each other. And it's only a few of us that have said no. It's only a few. And that truly is this higher mind. It's the third brain. It's the human brain. All right? This human brain is telling you what truth is every moment of every day. It's looking at people who, even though, like Tyalt, I'm literally explaining to him what logos is. He's not capable of listening because he's too busy typing, telling me, no, here's what logos is. Here's what it is. I'm not concerned with what you have to say because that's not comfortable. I'm not willing to spend an hour for someone who eloquently always puts together a good talk on a topic. I'm not willing to spend those categories. All I want to do is tell you how wrong you are, how uncomfortable you're making me feel. And that's what's been happening to so many of us. It's asking us, can you please stop talking? What you're saying is making me uncomfortable. And when you have something like that, when you have a system like that in place, you establish this pecking order where you get to dismiss yourself to different and different degrees. You need to see this, or you need to read this, or you need to read that. It's like, James, I can't listen to you because you haven't said that this is going to be comfortable for me to hear. So even though you haven't even started talking, even though you haven't even gotten into American philosophy, I have to insist you're wrong. I must insist that even though you've given us the 3 different evolutions of logos, which no one else has ever told you about, it's still uncomfortable. Because you know what, James? No one asked me to think about logos before today. No one asked me to think about the triune brain. No one asked me to think about the difference between a comfort movement and a truth movement. And that's why you're here. It's exactly why you're here. The reason why I stopped saying prune my lips is because you guys have to prune my lips. If you're on this channel and you're not doing it, you're the fool, not me. You're the one who's looking for that. Tell me I'm good, James. Tell me I'm right, James. Make it expensive for people to disagree with me, James. We end up in that comfort spiral, don't we? We end up in that comfort movement, and we insist it's the truth. These are the people that will not shut the fuck up about Pizzagate while they're putting masks on your kids. They're looking for that comfort. Masks on kids in school doesn't feel good. Pizzagate is so far away from me. It's such a fantasy. It has so many elaborate plots and twists. I can escape in that. I can find comfort in that. Therefore, Pizzagate is real. Duck rape is real. The church is real. And you can try and hang on to that as desperately as you can. You can cling to those coattails. Call me whatever names you want. Truth is leaving you. It has left you in this corner. And that corner is only going to wait for you. It's not going to give you anything else. It's not going to come suckle you more. It's actually going to be more painful. Do you know why it's going to be more painful? Because of how cool Dojo Earth is. That's what makes it so amazing. I don't have to condemn or try and condemn or try and tell you you're wrong. All I have to do is keep seeking my truth. Keep finding my morality. Keep bringing my morality to the market and say, hey guys, my morality is Pizzagate's not real. My morality is that masks on kids this fall is. My truth is Pizzagate's not real. My truth is that this is child abuse right now. These are different streams, aren't they? These are different talks we'll be having, right, between one and the other. Truth is a Brussels sprout, right? Comfort is sugar. Comfort's going to have tales. It's going to have stories of Luciferian pedophile worship. It's going to have stories of massive underground pedophilic bases that are so much more traumatic, so much more activating, that there's no reason to think about anything else but that. We evacuate ourselves to the idea that good truth is not from inside me, it's from outside of me. Rachel says, learn to sit uncomfortably until you find your way. Embrace it. God is always within you. Use your intuition as your God-given compass. Nailed it. Nailed it. Guys, you're not supposed to not be afraid of your compass. You're supposed to be afraid of it. The truth is, many of us should not be following our compass right now. Many of us can't even handle something as simple as sovereignty. It scares us too much. Only some of us are ready for that compass. Only some of us are ready to start listening. I try not to say this because I know each of us have our own definition of God, but my friends, the language of God is listening. It's not talking, it's listening. And your compass is how you act like God in your own life. You do what God does and you listen. You listen. It's not going to be words. It's not going to be logos, pathos, or ethos. It's not. It's resonance. Truth is resonance. The most real thing in your life is your entire emotional response with your social system of contracts with your personal cosmology with God. The emotional part, the first part, that's your reptilian truth. All right? You feel truth in your bones. Something doesn't feel right about that guy. I felt it in my bones. What this guy's saying makes sense, but it just doesn't vibrate. It doesn't oscillate right. There's something off about this. And on that deep level, your reptile is screaming at you sometimes, and the neocortex is always not listening. It is trained to always suppress that. Our society teaches you how evil reptilianism is, and so because of that, you're rejecting that reptile core. Your inner core is your crystal ship. It's the heart of your vessel, is that reptilian. Your emotional response that you have to your entire world around you is your compass. It's a vital part of your compass. And how that works is you start to sense something, that something doesn't feel right. Or you start to sense that this really, really feels right. Hugh says that resonates, James. And that's how he finds truth. Does this mean that if it resonates, it means you have truth? Of course not. Of course not. It means that you found something that you think is truth, and it's your job as an alchemist to peel it off and test it and see, is that true? Hey, Denny, thank you so much for that. Peace within. Same to you, Denny. He who hears not me, but the Logos, will say all is one. Heraclitus. The Greeks actually understood the word logos. They weren't failing in this pitfall of logos is not trusting yourself. Logos is not creating morality and defining it for what it is. Logos is not producing truth or producing morality. And it's literally the opposite of that. We are morality producers. Our crop is morality. We bloom morality, and it's blown from us like a dandelion in the wind. We spread that, and we either do it well or not. It either ends up being moral or it doesn't, right? The crop either dies or fails. Does it go bad? Does it persist? Does it last? Is it capable of spreading its seed? Your body is a processor for this. It's creating these systems for you. But it'll never work if you reject it. It'll never work if you do what Socrates did and tell yourself, I know shit. I have zero morality. I know nothing. I cannot be trusted. I will drink the hemlock when they bring it to me. I will evacuate myself and say, I am not in charge of my morality. I require the state to tell me what's moral. I require the Bible to tell me what's moral. I require this thought leader to tell me what's moral. This is all what Socrates does. It's the evacuation. We evacuate ourselves to the fear of sovereignty and vigilance. And it happens every day. Something new came out of that philosophy. We were striving forever and ever to figure out, why is that not ringing true for some of us? And then you had Immanuel Kant, who was asked, what is enlightenment? And he says, enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed nonage. Nonage is the inability to use one's own understanding without another's guidance. This nonage is self-imposed if it causes lies, not in the lack of understanding, but in indecision, and the big one, lack of courage. This is all about courage. To use one's own mind without answering, without another's guidance. Dare to know, sapere aude, have the courage to use your own understanding, is therefore the motto of the Enlightenment. Laziness and cowardice are the reasons why such a large part of mankind gladly remains minors all their lives, long after nature has freed them from external guidance. They are the reasons why it is so easy for others to set themselves up as guardians. He's talking about psychopathy here, isn't it? It is so comfortable to be a minor, a slave. If I have a book that thinks for me, a pastor who acts as my conscience, a physician who prescribes my diet, and so on, then I have no need to exert myself. I have no need to think. If only I can pay, others will take care of that disagreeable business for me. I'd like to pay for you to tell me what logos is, please. I'd like for you to define what morality is so I can continue riding the back seat. There was a yearning in those who thought. Kant wanted truth. He didn't want comfort. He wanted to drag it out further and take it further than anyone had ever done before. He wanted everyone to see it and poke at its flaws. And how do you poke at those flaws? Without the Hegelian dialectic. Without taking this idea and placing it between two towers and deciding what's the extreme, what's the Joachim, what's the mercy, what's the Boaz of this idea. And as we start to find our way discerning this truth, the Hegelian dialectic, believe it or not, was an analytical tool to find truth. It was a measure between. It's been used in bad ways, hasn't it? It's funny how that's always the case. A hammer is as good as it is evil, right? Our tools are as good as they are evil. Luckily, America happened. Luckily, some badass forefathers said, you know what? I'm tired of this lazy shit. I'm tired of people going around going, if I disagree with you, you're a sodomite. I'm tired of that shit. I'd like some real truth. I'd like us to do some fucking homework. I'd like us to fucking exercise once in a while. And so you have the Transcendentalists. You have writers like Emerson, Thoreau, and Whitman. People who were piercing through this illusion of logic, not logos. They saw logos as an emotional, logical pathos that they could use to interact with other people, to appeal to their logic, to their emotion, and to society itself, to the community around them. That's what Transcendentalism was. It was placing you inside your body again. It was placing truth inside your body. Transcendentalism, although named in a really fucked up way, you have to understand why it's named Transcendentalism, by the way, but Transcendentalism is really bodyism. It's really placing yourself back in the body. I can prove this. I did a thesis on it in college. I won't bore you with that piece of shit. It was a horrible writing, but I had to get through college. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. Thoreau. These American thinkers said enough. They were placed in the wilderness again, a budding America. Yes, there were things here, we talked about this, but compared to Europe, it's a budding America. These men were finding nature again. And the moment they found nature, they saw a clue. They said, wait a minute. Nature is the most beautiful gift of all. And they had to call it a gift of all because they were emerging from this fucked up place, this idea of the Spanish Inquisition, this idea of witch burnings, this idea of King James telling everybody Lucifer's a pedophile. Stemmed from that is this idea of germ theory really set in, right? Demonology. Every herbalist needs to be rounded up and burned. this idea that we are scorned and broken, is germ theory. And these guys were saying, fuck that. Fuck that. Main ideas of Transcendentalism, particularly interested in the natural world and its relationship to humanity, believe that if they explored nature thoroughly, they would come to know themselves and the universal truths better. Thought that the human spirit is reflected in nature. That's Transcendentalism. Notice how these American philosophers weren't bitching about nature, were they? They weren't cursing nature. They weren't saying that nature is Satan. They weren't saying that carbon itself, the element of carbon, 666, is here to shove a dildo up my ass, right? Look at all the fear we've got around this. There's so much charge around this. And that's what these guys were fighting against. They were rebuilding thought. They were taking it back into their bodies again. Began as a rebellion, traditionally held beliefs by the English church that God superseded the individual. And isn't that what we're arguing about? Isn't that why Owen was afraid to go camping with other men? Because of this belief that it began as a rebellion against traditional held beliefs by the English church that God superseded the individual. That to think like Thoreau, Emerson, and Whitman is to be Luciferian. Is to think that you are responsible for your morality. All the morality you produced is on your back. We're calling that idea evil. And what these men were doing was showing you the logos. They were showing you, where is Christ? In the crystal ship. What does Christ do? He falls and he rises. In the temple, I find my Father. Until you're ready to decode, well, you're ready to decode whenever you want. No pressure. Take all the time you need. This place, it's got lots of time. The 5 tenets of Transcendentalism. Everything is a reflection of God. Please keep in mind that we think right now that if I'm masturbating to porn, that's not a reflection of God, right? In fact, we've gotten mad at me because I've told you that to watch me is a form of worship. We've said, no, that's not true. That's not true. We're pretending that we get to choose when we worship and when we don't. In fact, we've zoned it to a building. On Sunday at 11 a.m., I will worship. And I will stop. And I will go home. And then, I am good. I am good for 6 days. Because I can follow the Zeitgeist that tells me it's the logos. And the Transcendentalist was saying, no. I'm sorry. You have too much work than that. Everything is a reflection of God. People are generally good and will treat others fairly. The closer a person is to nature, the closer he or she is to God. Notice that now nature is not an evil. Gaia is no longer destroyed. We don't need an Apollo to cut down and cut the Pythos, do we? We don't need to curse the world and say it belongs to snakes or serpents. For the first time, not for the first time, because if you look into paganism, if you look into astrotheology, we're finally coming back to what it was. The closer a person is to nature, the closer he or she is to God. A person should follow his or her intuition in making decisions, and individuality and self-reliance are more important than following the majority or tradition. This is Luciferianism, guys. This right here is Luciferianism. So let's stare at how evil this is. Everything is a reflection of God. People are generally good and will treat others fairly. On that good, everyone wants to sleep at night. I think I covered this earlier. Everyone's trying to be good. I've yet to meet an evil person that gets up to says, I'm going to commit evil today. That's my goal. If you're going to commit evil every day, that would have to be evil against yourself too, which means you would not survive. All right? These people aren't trying to commit evil. They're trying to commit good. But they've evacuated themselves like Socrates. They declared that anyone going into the woods is evil. They've said anyone embracing nature is evil. They've said anyone who tries to find God inside their living cross is evil. And so we fight back this American spunk. America injected truth into the zeitgeist. They said, fuck you, this is true. What I know, what I feel, what I experience is true. And we rejected that. We still do. And it's funny because even Jesus is a transcendentalist. Jesus literally transcended himself, but he's a Luciferian too, because here he is saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus told you your body's a temple. Jesus told you to look within. Jesus told you that nature was here to help you. Probably my favorite poem. I sing the body electric. The armies of those I love engirth me, and I engirth them. They will not let me off till I go with them, respond to them, and discorrupt them, and charge them full with the charge of the soul. Was it doubted that those who corrupt their own bodies conceal themselves? And if those who defile the living are as bad as those who defile the dead, and if the body does not do as much as the soul, and if the body were not the soul, what is the soul? The love of the body of man or woman balks account. The body itself balks account. The of the male is perfect, and that of the female is perfect. The expression of the face balks account. But the expression of a well-being man appears not only in his face, it is in his limbs and joints also. It is curiously in the joints of his hips and wrists. It is in his walk, the carriage of his neck, the flex of his waist and knees. Dress does not hide him. The strong, sweet, supple quality he has strikes through the cotton and flannel. To see him pass conveys as much as the best poem, perhaps more. You linger to see his back, and the back of his neck and shoulder side, the sprawl and fullness of babes, the bosoms and heads of women, the folds of their dress, their styles we pass in the street, the contour of their shape downwards. The swimmer, naked in the swimming bath, seen as he swims through the transparent green shine, or lies with his face up and rolls silently to and fro in the heave of the water. The bending forward and backward of rowers in rowboats, the horseman in his saddle, girls, mothers, housekeepers, in all their performances, the group of laborers seated at noontime with their open dinner kettles and their wives waiting, the female soothing a child, the farmer's daughter in the garden or cow yard, the young fellow hoeing corn, the sleigh driver guiding the 6 horses through the crowd, the wrestle of wrestlers, 2 apprentice boys quite grown, lusty, good-natured, native-born, and on the vacant lot at sundown after work, the coats and caps thrown down, the embrace of love and resistance, the upper hold and the under hold, the hair rumpled over and blinding the eyes, the march of firemen in their own costumes, the play of masculine muscle through clean-setting trousers and waist straps, the slow return from the fire, the pause when the bell strikes suddenly again. I sing the body electric because the body is the vessel. The body is the vessel God gave you. To reject that vessel is to do what? Is to scourge it. I can hear people rejecting this right now, saying, this is gay. This is evil. This is Luciferian. And what it is sinew and bone, blood and sweat, salt and oil, thought and feeling. This is the deepest you'll find man, seated in his throne, crowned by his own skull. These ideas of the American transcendentalists were finally cemented in what we call American pragmatism. American pragmatism is a belief that truth is what works. Sometimes it's called utilitarianism. It's the idea that the most moral thing is the one that serves the most. Serves the most. The one that requires the least amount of evacuation in people defines our morality. Which means that morality is now defined by connections, not by tenets, not by commandments. The Bible doesn't have enough pages to tell you what's moral or not, because you have trillions and trillions of connections. And each of those connections are a moral decision, aren't they? They're a moral decision to be or not be, to evacuate or not evacuate, to sit or stand, to run or embrace. Being inside your body is being with God. Calling your body your temple is you following the path of Jesus, following the path of God. Calling me evil or misguided for telling you I am the God of my body is the same as saying abortion should be legal, that all of us should tell everyone else how their own temple should be run, how their own system should be. If none of us were evacuated, all of us would know these decisions. All of us would understand, is what I'm about to do going to evacuate me, or is it going to seat me deeper? There's not enough pages in the Bible to tell you how to act morally, how to produce good, how to understand logos. There's not. All they can do is show you how to use the instruments of your adrenals, your endocrine system, your past, your future, your reptile, your mammal, and your human, and to bring those all into a central vertex. So you can be the one that says, to the best of my ability, God, to the best of my discernment, God, this I hold as true. This I hold as moral. And no one else can do that. There's no one else in the world doing that. A church cannot produce morality. It can only produce people that show up inside it. Those people are the ones that produce the morality. They're the ones that define this new fruit. It's a fruit, guys. What we call good is fruit. In the past, good was strong, evil was weak. A good was one who could come into a village and take what he wanted, and evil is one who would give it away. It is compassionately retarded to keep believing in evil. You are turning off your compassion every time you do that. And some of you aren't ready to turn that on, and that's fine. I'm only speaking to the ones who are. I'm only speaking to the ones who are ready. Pragmatism's only test of probable truth is what works best in the way of leading us, what fits every part of life best and combines with the collectivity of experiences demands, nothing being omitted. Nothing being omitted includes yourself. It includes your ability to sleep at night. It includes your ability to discern that which you can experience, Synthetics, versus that which you can be told, Zeitgeist. You have two Z's to choose from, friends. Zeitgeist or Synthetics. Make your choice. There's not even a wrong one. There's not. Because by making the choice that I disagree with, it's going to teach you something. It's going to send you down a path where you're going to learn to grow and develop your own fruit of morality. Fearing God is not knowing thyself, Jason Day. Fearing God is learning how to fear something. There's no obedience in fear. There's no love in fear. There's no logos in fear. Fear is fear. Fear means I am intimidated. Morality does not fall out of intimidation. It's literally the opposite. You can't make someone be moral. Do you see how impossible that is to even claim that? You can't force someone at gunpoint to do something moral. That's not moral. Even that shows you the truth of pragmatism, doesn't it? Because if truth was truly what we're claiming, that it's this Catholic idea of logos, if we're truly going to insist that it comes from outside ourselves and we have to fucking pray and cut off our dicks or take this body in this cannibalistic ceremony or evacuate ourselves in front of others to make sure none of us are trying too hard, then we miss the boat entirely. We don't even get on the boat. And we get to claim ourselves as in the logos when all we've done is abandon it. You are the factory of morality. You're the only one. You're the only one. You're the only factory of cosmology. That book that you say is truth. That book that you say is logos. That book that you say is morality is a crutch. And that crutch is going to lead you to doubt yourself every single time because you're using a crutch. And if you want to know why people get so butthurt over what I'm talking about, it's because they don't like it when I point out that they're using a crutch. They don't like how many times they're left behind going, wait up or you're evil. Wait up or you're evil. You're never going to get there, guys, that way. Fear Prometheus. Fear the chariot of fire. Create your excuses to not get on the chariot. Sorry, Lord, I can't go with you. Those wheels are far too anti-Semitic. Sorry, James. I can't go camping with you in the woods. I don't trust myself enough. I don't trust my ability to discern what you think. I don't trust my ability to discern what I think. It is so much easier to sleep when you're not holding a torch. Thanks for joining me, guys. You guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.